Welcome back to Sleepless Mysteries. On July 1st, 2025, astronomers detected something that did not belong to our solar system. An interstellar comet, green and glowing, tumbling in from the abyss between stars. They named it 3 Atlas, the third visitor of its kind ever recorded. Its orbit, strange and unpredictable, has drawn it closer to the neighborhood of Mars. And now a haunting question arises. What happens if fragments of this alien traveler strike the red planet? Could Mars, fragile and storm-prone, be thrown into chaos by dust, ice, and stone from another star? We know Mars well enough to fear its storms. The thin atmosphere hides a violent truth: winds that can sweep across the planet, lifting fine red dust high into the sky, swallowing continents in weeks, sometimes circling the globe for months. In 2018, such a storm silenced NASA's Opportunity rover forever. These storms begin with only small disturbances, tiny shifts in heat or pressure. But what if an interstellar comet introduced something larger? A cloud of fragments slamming into the surface, shaking the atmosphere, seeding the skies with new dust? It would take little to tip Mars into a storm that covers the world. The chemistry of 3I Atlas only deepens the unease. Its gases glow with cyanides, metals, and organics, unlike those in ordinary comets. If even dust grains fall onto Mars, they may change how light and heat move through the thin air. More particles in the sky mean more reflection, more turbulence, more storms. And if larger fragments were to strike, they could raise plumes of dust so vast that the entire planet would darken under their haze. This is not imagination alone. Earth itself has been changed by cosmic collisions. Asteroids brought extinction, craters, and shifts in climate. Mars, too, bears scars of ancient impacts. But never before have we watched in real time as a visitor from another star brushes so close to a planet we now explore with rovers, orbiters, and satellites. To see Atlas approaching Mars is to witness history not only of astronomy, but of planetary destiny. Ancient peoples often feared comets, calling them omens of storms, disasters, or divine punishment. The Babylonians wrote of torches in the sky that brought upheaval. The Chinese recorded broom stars that swept across heaven, warning of change. Perhaps they saw in the comet's tail what we now understand in science, that such visitors can alter the fate of worlds. Atlas may not strike Earth, but if its fragments touch Mars, the red planet could become a laboratory for cosmic change, showing us what happens when alien matter meets a fragile world. You don't need to see the comet's glow to imagine it. Just let these words guide you. Close your eyes if you wish. Picture Mars hanging silent in the black, its desert still, its skies clear. Above it, a glowing visitor drifts past, shedding dust and stone. Then slowly storms begin. First local, then regional, then planet-wide, until the world vanishes beneath a shroud of red. Before we begin, if you haven't already, subscribe to Sleepless Mysteries, so these journeys into the unknown will always find you. Tap the like button if stories like this stir your imagination. And if you're still awake, share in the comments where in the world you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now, let the noise fade. Tonight, we follow a comet from the stars and a world that may soon lie beneath storms of its making. This is 3I Atlas. Will its fragments strike Mars and trigger a planet-wide storm? Science for sleep. And it begins now. The arrival of the stranger. When astronomers first detected 3 Atlas, it was little more than a faint streak against the endless black canvas of the cosmos. It appeared at the edges of our solar system, just another icy fragment wandering through the void. But from the beginning, something about this visitor felt different. Its speed was unusual, faster than most comets we had ever tracked. Its path was steeper, cutting across the planetary orbits in a way that suggested it had not been born here. And perhaps most striking of all, its very designation carried a weight of mystery. The 3I signified that it was only the third known interstellar object to pass through our solar system, following the notorious Oumuamua and the dazzling comet Borisov. From the moment it appeared, 3I Atlas seemed destined to unsettle us. Comets are often seen as cosmic messengers, silent travelers carrying icy records of the past. But an interstellar comet is something far more alien. It is not a product of our sun's creation, nor a fragment of any familiar planetary system. It is an exile from the deep beyond, hurled toward us by the gravity of another star long ago. To glimpse such an object is to peer into a mystery that predates Earth itself. As telescopes fixed their gaze on it, scientists realized this was no ordinary body. Its motion was not smooth or predictable. It carried the imprint of forces we could not easily explain. Small accelerations, nudges against the void, hinted that it was being pushed not just by gravity, but perhaps by processes unfolding within it. Comets release gases as they warm, a process called outgassing. But in 3I Atlas, the levels seemed inconsistent, almost erratic, as though its interior was alive with tension. That was the first sign that this arrival was different. The stranger was not content to glide silently by. It was changing, evolving, becoming brighter and stranger with each passing week. For ancient civilizations, such a sight in the heavens would have been read as an omen. In Babylonian star maps, comets were called wandering stars, symbols of upheaval. The Mayans described sky serpents that shed fragments as they passed, leaving fiery trails across the night. To medieval monks, a torch burning in the sky was a harbinger of war or plague. And now, in the modern age of satellites and radio telescopes, we too found ourselves staring upward, wondering what message the cosmos had sent us this time. As the days turned into weeks, reports came in from observatories across the world. 3I Atlas was brightening at a rate no one predicted. Instead of a cold, faint glow, it was shedding light as if awakening from some long slumber. Its coma, the cloud of gas and dust surrounding its nucleus, expanded into a ghostly sphere larger than planets. Green light bled into its halo, a glow caused by diatomic carbon, but unusually intense, as though something within the body was burning hotter than expected. This was the arrival of the stranger, not just in astronomical terms, but in a deeper, more unsettling sense. We were witnessing a phenomenon that no textbook could easily explain. For scientists, it became a race to gather data before it slipped away. For the public, it became a story of awe and unease, shared in headlines that spoke of an alien visitor, a cosmic intruder, a question mark from the stars. And yet, perhaps the strangest element was not its glow or its speed, but its silence. This was a relic from another star system, possibly billions of years old, carrying within it frozen molecules that had never been touched by our sun's light until now. To study it was to brush against the unknown, to imagine distant worlds where it might once have belonged, and to wonder what secrets it carried as it crossed the gulf of interstellar space. The arrival of 3 Atlas forced us to ask unsettling questions. Was it merely another cosmic wanderer, or did its appearance herald something larger? Could its chemistry reveal patterns that pointed to life, or even technology beyond our solar system? Were we seeing a natural body unravel, or the deliberate path of something built to travel the stars? In the quiet of observatories, astronomers debated the data. In the silence of night, ordinary people stared at the news, feeling a familiar echo of fear. What if the stranger was not here by chance? The arrival of the stranger was only the beginning. What followed, the brightening, the fragmentation, the formation of a swarm, would deepen the enigma, pushing us to reconsider what we truly know about visitors from the beyond. But in that first moment, as its faint light sharpened into something undeniable, the world understood one thing clearly. The universe had sent us a reminder. We are not alone in its vastness, and sometimes strangers arrive unannounced. Unnatural brightening. From the very beginning, astronomers expected 3I Atlas to follow the familiar script of comets. As it approached the sun, solar radiation would warm its icy nucleus, causing frozen gases to sublimate and vent outward in spectacular jets. This process normally explains the glowing coma and sweeping tail, phenomena that make comets some of the most beautiful objects in the night sky. Yet, with 3I Atlas, what unfolded was nothing like the predictions written on paper. Instead of a gradual increase in brightness, this interstellar visitor flared with an intensity that startled even seasoned observers. Its magnitude shifted so rapidly that charts and models had to be rewritten weekly, sometimes even daily. What should have been a faint object seen only with powerful instruments suddenly grew luminous enough to brush the edge of naked eye visibility in dark skies. At first, scientists tried to rationalize the anomaly. Perhaps its surface was unusually fragile, riddled with fissures that allowed gas to escape faster than normal. Maybe it was simply rich in volatile compounds like carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, which ignite into brilliance when exposed to sunlight. These explanations made sense on paper, but as the data poured in, cracks began to show. The problem was not just that 3I Atlas brightened, it brightened too much, too quickly, and in a pattern that defied natural symmetry. Typical comets release gases unevenly, but the distribution of brightness tends to stabilize into predictable arcs and jets. With 3I Atlas, the glow shifted across its coma like a restless storm. One hemisphere would flare suddenly, then fade, only for another region to ignite without warning. The object seemed alive, almost responsive, as though it were reacting to more than just the distant heat of the sun. Its coma grew to staggering proportions, at one point larger than Jupiter itself, an enormous shroud of gas and dust dwarfing anything else near it. But the expansion didn't match the typical energy budget of a comet. The math suggested the nucleus was too small to support such a vast glowing envelope for long. Something else had to be feeding the storm. The green color of the glow added another layer of unease. Green comae are not unheard of. They usually result from the presence of diatomic carbon molecules fluorescing under solar radiation. But the saturation of this hue in 3 Atlas was far stronger than expected, painting the comet with an almost radioactive intensity. To the human eye, seen through long exposure photography, it looked less like a natural comet and more like a beacon, an emerald torch igniting the night sky. This unnatural brightening drew parallels to earlier mysteries. Oumuamua, the first recorded interstellar visitor, exhibited a strange acceleration as it left our solar system, which some suggested could have been caused by outgassing too faint to detect. Others went further, speculating it might have been a form of alien probe. Now with 3I Atlas, the whispers grew louder. Was this object revealing its true nature through its unnatural light? The anomaly also revived ancient associations. For millennia, comets were feared as omens precisely because of their unpredictable brightening. Medieval chroniclers wrote of hairy stars that flared in brilliance before calamities struck, wars, plagues, and famines. The Chinese kept meticulous records of cometary appearances, noting the intensity of their glow as markers of dynastic change or cosmic imbalance. A green torch in the heavens glowing against the void would have been read not just as an astronomical event, but as a divine signal. Modern astronomers, though cautious, could not help but marvel at the scale of the event. Here was a body from another star system, carrying frozen molecules older than Earth, now erupting in a performance that no model could quite contain. If it were simply a matter of fragile ice, why was the brightening not consistent with disintegration? If it were simply chemistry, why did the spectral lines reveal ratios so alien compared to solar system comets? Some researchers began to whisper about exotic explanations. Could cosmic rays, accumulated during its journey through interstellar space, be releasing energy as they interacted with sunlight? Could 3I Atlas contain trapped reservoirs of gases unknown to us, compounds forged in the heart of a different star's nebula? Or, most provocatively, could its brightening be deliberate, a mechanism of signaling or even propulsion? Meanwhile, telescopes on Earth and in orbit strained to capture its every move. Amateur astronomers joined in, flooding forums with long exposure images that showed the glowing emerald halo growing larger night by night. For the first time in generations, the public could feel with their own eyes the drama of a celestial event unfolding not in centuries, but in real time. And yet, the brightening was not just spectacle. It carried consequences. The more luminous it became, the more fragments appeared in its wake. The unnatural light seemed tied to a deeper unraveling, as if the comet's heart was tearing itself apart. Shards and dust clouds began to swarm around the nucleus, coalescing into a dark entourage that followed the glowing core. The brightening, it seemed, was both a symptom and a warning. This was no serene visitor, but a body in crisis, or perhaps in transformation. For Mars, the timing could not have been more ominous. 3I Atlas was barreling on a trajectory that would bring it close to the red planet, and now it appeared less like a single object and more like a storm system, a radiant core shedding fragments into space. Astronomers spoke cautiously in interviews, unwilling to fuel panic, but between the lines the message was clear. No one could guarantee how many of those fragments might intersect with Mars. Unnatural brightening had turned a simple comet into a cosmic event and possibly a planetary threat. The glowing torch in the sky was no longer just a curiosity. It was a force whose consequences might soon be felt across another world. the questions multiplied. Was this sudden surge of light a sign that 3I Atlas was dying, its nucleus collapsing into dust? Or was it awakening, revealing reserves of energy we did not expect, hinting at processes we barely understood? Every flare of brightness seemed to whisper that the object was not simply passing by. It was performing, displaying, perhaps even warning. For those watching closely, the unnatural brightening of 3I Atlas became more than an astronomical note. It became a symbol of mystery itself. Something had crossed into our solar system from the unknown, and instead of fading quietly into the dark, it lit a green fire that no one could ignore. Whether comet, probe, or something stranger still, its brilliance was a reminder that the universe is not a silent place. Sometimes it speaks in lights we cannot explain. The anti-tail mystery. Every schoolchild learns the basic truth of comets. Their tails always point away from the sun. This simple rule is the result of solar radiation and the solar wind pushing dust and gas outward, creating the familiar glowing streamers that trail across the heavens. For centuries, astronomers relied on this consistency to chart cometary behavior. But with 3I Atlas, even this ancient law of celestial mechanics seemed to falter. As its coma swelled and its brightness grew, telescopes caught sight of something profoundly unsettling, a tail stretching not away from the sun, but toward it. To the human eye, captured in long exposures, it looked like a shadow against the rules of the cosmos. An inverted streamer of dust defying physics, a ghostly appendage that pointed into the very light it was supposed to flee. The discovery shocked both professional astronomers and amateurs who first noticed it in their images. Quickly, the phenomenon earned a name whispered across observatories: the anti-tail. At first glance, the anti-tail seemed impossible. If solar radiation and wind dictate comet tails, then how could a stream of matter move against the force of the sun's pressure? Yet, there it was, undeniable in photographs and spectral measurements. A thin, dagger-like streak pointing sunward, while the normal tail trailed behind. For 3I Atlas, the laws of cometary science were bending in ways no one had anticipated. There are natural explanations for anti-tails, though they are exceedingly rare. In some comets, particles can spread in wide, flat sheets along the comet's orbital plane. When Earth's perspective happens to align with that plane, the sheet of dust can appear as a narrow line stretching forward, creating the illusion of a tail pointing toward the sun. Astronomers call this a dust trail, a trick of geometry rather than a reversal of physics. But 3I Atlas was no ordinary comet, and the anti-tail it displayed seemed far too distinct, far too luminous, to be dismissed as mere perspective. Reports suggested that the sunward streak was sharper and more coherent than natural dust trails. Moreover, it appeared to shift and intensify in ways that did not match the slow drift of particles across orbital planes. This was not a static illusion. It was an active, evolving feature. The strangeness of the anti-tail sparked new waves of speculation. Some scientists proposed that fragments breaking from the nucleus were being caught in unusual gravitational eddies, curving dust streams into directions rarely seen. Others argued that electromagnetic interactions, still poorly understood at interstellar scales, might be sculpting plasma streams in ways invisible to us before now. But there were also voices, quieter, more hesitant, that raised another possibility. What if the anti-tail was not a mistake of physics, but a signature of intention? To those daring to think beyond the limits of traditional astronomy, the anti-tail looked less like a comet's accident and more like the exhaust plume of something engineered. If 3I Atlas were more than a natural body, if it were a probe, a construct, or a vehicle of some kind, then perhaps the sunward streak was the mark of propulsion. Light sails, exotic engines, or even radiation-driven thrusters could, in theory, create visible lines that break our expectations. Could it be that what we saw as an anti-tail was, in truth, a trail of activity not caused by sunlight, but by design? For the general public, the imagery of a comet pointing back at the sun resonated with symbolic weight. Ancient mythologies are filled with celestial torches, weapons of the gods, and fiery swords that cut across the sky. The Babylonians saw such streaks as harbingers of divine wrath. The Greeks imagined flaming omens sent by Zeus. Medieval chroniclers describe comet swords appearing before plagues and wars. A sunward pointing tail, a comet defying the will of the heavens, would have been read as a signal of rebellion, an omen of upheaval. And now, in the modern world, we too found ourselves struggling to interpret what such a phenomenon meant. Astronomers noted with unease that the anti-tail coincided with the comet's fragmentation. As the nucleus continued to shed material, swarms of debris followed in its wake, and some of that debris seemed to be funneled into this unnatural sunward streamer. It was as though 3I Atlas was not just disintegrating, but redistributing its fragments in deliberate ways, sending some forward into the very light of the sun. Could this be an unknown mechanism of stress relief, or was the comet spitting matter toward the sun in some as-yet unknown interaction? The geometry of the anti-tail carried another consequence. It pointed directly into the path ahead along the comet's trajectory. This meant that material forming the sunward streak could be flung into regions of space that Mars would soon occupy. Instead of all debris drifting safely away, some portion now seemed aligned with the red planet's orbital lane. The anti-tail, bizarre as it was, might have been the very mechanism that ensured Mars would not escape unscathed. And so the anti-tail mystery deepened. It was no longer simply a curiosity for comet watchers. It became part of the growing narrative of danger, a strange visitor from the stars, glowing unnaturally green, fragmenting violently, and now flinging matter not away from the sun but into the void ahead, straight toward the orbit of Mars. To some, the anti-tail seemed like a message. If natural processes could not fully explain it, then perhaps it was a demonstration, a signal meant to catch the eye of any who might be watching. What if 3I Atlas was not just a wanderer but a messenger, showing its hand in ways subtle but undeniable? The torch that points backward, the sword that cuts against the light, it was the kind of image that stirred both scientists and storytellers alike. In the coming weeks, observatories tracked the anti-tail with growing urgency, mapping its angle, density, and velocity. Each measurement painted the same picture. This was no static artifact. The streak shifted, pulsed, and sometimes even appeared to flare brighter than the main tail itself. Some observers compared it to a second comet riding atop the first, a phantom shadow bound to its parent. The anti-tail mystery, in the end, left more questions than answers. Was it simply a rare but natural alignment of dust and sunlight, exaggerated by the comet's interstellar chemistry? Was it evidence of forces we do not yet understand, a lesson in plasma physics on a cosmic scale? Or was it something far stranger, a glimpse of intentional design, a mechanical echo disguised within the chaos of a comet's form? Whatever the truth, one fact became clear. The anti-tail was not just an astronomical curiosity. It was a symbol of how 3I Atlas defied every expectation. The visitor from the stars did not behave like a comet, did not glow like a comet, and now did not even point its tail like a comet. It was rewriting the rules in real time, and in doing so, it was forcing us to face a chilling thought. What if 3 Atlas was not here to pass quietly through the solar system at all? What if its strange behaviors, the unnatural brightening, the anti-tail, the swarm of fragments, were all part of a greater pattern, a design we had yet to decipher? As the antail continued to stretch defiantly toward the sun, humanity found itself staring at a mystery that seemed less like a comet and more like a riddle written across the heavens. Swarm formation. For weeks, astronomers had been dazzled by the emerald torch of 3I Atlas, unsettled by its impossible brightening and the baffling anti-tail that stretched sunward. But then came a new revelation, one that shifted the narrative from curiosity to alarm. The object was no longer solitary. Around it, clusters of dark, drifting bodies began to appear. Small at first, almost imperceptible, they multiplied with each passing observation. Soon, telescopes revealed what many described as a swarm, a chaotic entourage of fragments circling, trailing, and moving in strange patterns around the interstellar visitor. To a trained observer, comet fragmentation is not surprising. As a comet nears the sun, volatile gases erupt, the nucleus fractures, and shards peel away, drifting into elongated trails. But what scientists witnessed with 3I Atlas went beyond natural disintegration. These fragments didn't scatter randomly, nor did they fade quietly into dust. Instead, they clustered, hovered, and sometimes even appeared to regroup, as if bound by invisible threads. High-resolution imagery showed dozens of dark specks orbiting within the coma itself, like fish schooling within a glowing sea. Others trailed behind the comet, not dispersing into the vacuum as expected, but moving as a loose formation, their paths strangely coordinated. The deeper astronomers looked, the harder it became to dismiss. This was not chaos. This was pattern. Theories sprouted quickly, some grounded, others more daring. Perhaps 3I Atlas had a nucleus riddled with cavities, releasing chunks at regular intervals. Maybe gravitational resonance with Mars and the Sun was shepherding fragments into lanes, creating the illusion of order. Plasma interactions, too, could sculpt charged particles into filaments that mimicked structure. But none of these explanations fully accounted for what was seen: an expanding swarm of objects that seemed intent on staying together. For many, the imagery was deeply unsettling. To see a solitary comet grow into a hive, trailing fragments like attendants, was to watch something more alive than inanimate. It evoked ancient tales of sky serpents shedding scales, of celestial armies marching across the stars, of omens in which the heavens themselves fractured into swarms before times of crisis. Medieval stargazers once wrote of fiery rains in the sky, each ember a herald of disaster. Now, in the age of space science, we faced a vision that echoed their fears. The scale of the swarm compounded the anxiety. Some fragments were small, no more than drifting boulders, but others rivaled city blocks, each capable of causing destruction if they struck a planetary body. With Mars so near the projected path of 3I Atlas, astronomers realized that even if the nucleus missed the red planet, the swarm of fragments could still intersect its orbit. The potential for impact was no longer hypothetical. It was written in the statistics of probability. Simulations grew grim. Dust trails extending thousands of kilometers might envelop Mars, seeding its atmosphere with fine particles. Larger shards could pepper the surface, triggering explosions powerful enough to stir global dust storms. On Earth, we had seen how regional dust storms can engulf Mars entirely, shrouding the planet for months. If interstellar fragments rained down, the planet could face storms lasting years, altering its climate and potentially erasing decades of delicate exploration. But beyond the physical danger was something more abstract: intent. To many, the swarm seemed purposeful, as if the fragments were not merely breaking free, but were being deployed. Their strange clustering suggested cohesion, like a flock of birds navigating invisible currents. Some theorists whispered that this might be no accident at all, that 3I Atlas was dispersing itself deliberately, transforming from a single body into a network. In this view, the swarm was not a symptom of death, but a strategy of survival. This idea was not without precedent. In nature, swarming behavior is common among organisms. Bees split their colonies to expand, fungi scatter spores to colonize, and schools of fish move as one to confuse predators. If 3I Atlas was something more than ice and rock, if it was in some way alive or engineered, then the swarm could be its most telling revelation. Perhaps it was seeding. Perhaps it was testing. Perhaps it was showing us the form it was always meant to take, not a comet, but a cloud. The speculation bled into public discourse. Online forums filled with comparisons to science fiction, von Neumann probes dispersing into self-replicating fragments, alien drones unfolding from a mothership, even swarms designed for surveillance or planetary engineering. Was Mars ours about to become the testing ground for such an experiment? Was the red planet's thin atmosphere about to be seeded not by chance, but by design? Even mainstream scientists could not entirely dismiss the unease. The swarm's cohesion was undeniable, and though natural explanations existed, the data resisted tidy categorization. Some observers reported that the swarm seemed to pulse, the density of fragments rising and falling in cycles. Others noted faint electromagnetic signals that coincided with fragmentation events, though these were often dismissed as noise. Yet the pattern was enough to stir uncomfortable questions. As the swarm grew, ancient prophecies resurfaced in the cultural imagination. The Mayan vision of the sky serpent spoke of a glowing body shedding fragments that fell across the heavens. Siberian shamans told of an elongated stone from the stars that split into many, raining change upon the world. Medieval records described a green torch in the heavens, attended by sparks that heralded calamity. To see 3 Atlas surrounded by a swarm of glowing and dark fragments was to see these prophecies given shape once more. For Mars, the clock was ticking. The swarm was not dispersing harmlessly into space. It was moving with the comet, carried along its path like an entourage shadowing their leader. When the trajectory brought it close to the red planet, the swarm would not vanish. It would arrive as well, a dark cloud with unpredictable consequences. Scientists debated whether Mars might capture fragments in its gravity, whether dust storms would ignite, or whether the planet would bear scars of impacts visible for centuries. The swarm formation was a turning point. It was the moment when 3 Atlas ceased being a solitary curiosity and became a collective enigma. Its presence no longer suggested a single riddle, but a multiplying puzzle, fracturing into pieces that carried the same mystery in smaller forms. It was as though the visitor from beyond was teaching us that the universe's secrets are not singular. They come in swarms, too vast and too intricate to grasp in one glance. The formation of the swarm left humanity in a state of awe and unease. We were no longer watching a comet. We were watching a process unfold, one that blurred the line between natural and intentional, between random fragmentation and deliberate design. Whether by physics, by biology, or by something else entirely, 3I Atlas was multiplying itself, spreading across the void in a cloud that followed no rules we fully understood. And so the story of 3I Atlas deepened. A green torch had become a hive. A solitary wanderer had transformed into an entourage, and as the swarm grew denser, darker, and more numerous, one truth echoed louder than all the rest. This was not just a visitor passing through. This was a presence that had arrived to show us something far stranger than we had ever imagined. A swarm from the stars unfolding before our eyes. Real-time escalation. For most cosmic events, humanity observes from a distance, watching patiently as centuries of change compress into a few faint glimpses. Stars swell and collapse over lifetimes, galaxies drift apart over eons, and comets trace their orbits over decades. But with 3I Atlas, time itself seemed to compress. What normally would have taken decades to unfold now happened in a matter of days. Astronomers accustomed to studying slow-moving mysteries suddenly found themselves caught in a race against a phenomenon that shifted in real time. Every night brought new revelations. The comet brightened beyond its predicted curve, its coma swelling until it dwarfed planets. Then came the anti-tail, a sunward dagger that confounded the textbooks. And just as researchers began adjusting to that anomaly, the swarm appeared. Dark fragments clustering like an entourage around the glowing core. What unsettled observers most was not simply that these changes occurred, but that they occurred with astonishing speed. What had been logged 1 week as a faint and solitary object became, within a fortnight, a blazing green torch attended by a hive of fragments. The sense of escalation grew with every observation. Telescopes around the world scrambled to keep pace, but even the largest observatories admitted they were falling behind. By the time images were processed, the object had already changed again, leaving charts and models outdated almost instantly. "It's like trying to study a thunderstorm with a quill pen," one astronomer remarked. By the time you finish the note, the sky has already moved on. In the public sphere, this acceleration translated into urgency. News outlets reported daily on the comet's unpredictable behavior, and amateur astronomers fueled the conversation with images that spread across social media within hours of capture. The story of 3I Atlas became a rare instance of the world watching a cosmic event together in real time. And unlike eclipses or meteor showers, which inspire wonder, this event inspired unease. People could see it with their own eyes, the glow brightening unnaturally, the tail defying direction, the swarm growing denser. The mystery wasn't distant, it was unfolding before them, night by night. Scientists tried to keep their assessments cautious. Cometary fragmentation is natural, they explained. Anti-tails can be optical illusions caused by geometry. Brightening can result from volatile outgassing. Yet, even as these reassurances circulated, the data kept slipping through the cracks. The patterns were too erratic, the escalations too synchronized. Each day, the comet seemed to reinvent itself, behaving not like an object bound by physics, but like a phenomenon responding to its own rhythm. The escalation carried a deeper implication. If the object could change so drastically in days, then forecasting its future path became nearly impossible. Traditional models depend on stability. Calculating orbital mechanics assumes the nucleus will behave as expected. But 3I Atlas refused to stay consistent. Outgassing altered its acceleration. Fragmentation changed its mass. dust clouds shifted its brightness. With every new event, the trajectory toward Mars became harder to predict with confidence. The more it escalated, the less humanity could say about what would happen next. This unpredictability fueled darker theories. Was the comet breaking apart naturally, or was it revealing something hidden within? Was the swarm merely debris, or a form of controlled release? Was the brightening simply sunlight striking gas, or a sign of energy being deliberately emitted? Each new escalation seemed to taunt observers with the same question: is this random chaos or design? For ancient civilizations, the sudden escalation of a comet's brilliance would have been read as an omen of impending catastrophe. Babylonian records spoke of wandering stars that flared and fractured before wars. The Mayans described sky serpents shedding luminous fragments before times of upheaval. In medieval Europe, chroniclers wrote of torches in the heavens that multiplied and blazed before famine and plague. These stories, long relegated to the realm of myth, now seem to echo eerily through the behavior of 3II Atlas. The comet's rapid transformations felt less like a scientific anomaly and more like a performance, a cosmic drama being staged in real time. Meanwhile, Mars loomed closer in the comet's path. Every escalation increased the probability that the red planet would be affected. If the swarm continued to expand, fragments could intersect its orbit. If the brightening represented violent outgassing, debris clouds could blanket the Martian atmosphere. The anti-tail, pointing sunward, might send material directly into the region Mars would soon occupy. For planetary scientists, the countdown became critical. How many more escalations would occur before the close approach? Even robotic explorers on Mars entered the conversation. Rovers like Perseverance and landers like InSight suddenly seemed fragile, vulnerable to a storm of dust or impacts. Could these machines, designed for geological surveys, survive a cosmic bombardment? Some speculated that if fragments reached Mars, we might capture the first direct evidence of panspermia, alien organic compounds raining onto a planetary surface. Others warned that even small impacts could cripple decades of exploration. The escalation of 3 Atlas was no longer just a spectacle. It was a looming planetary event. What made the escalation so chilling was its rhythm. Each event seemed to build on the last, as though following an unseen script. First, the brightening, then the anti-tail, then the swarm, each revelation more dramatic, each change more unsettling. Observers began to wonder what would come next. Would the nucleus shatter entirely? Would the swarm grow into hundreds, even thousands of fragments? Would the object ignite in a final, incomprehensible display as it neared the sun? There were whispers among fringe theorists that the comet was signaling, each escalation a message in light and shadow. The unnatural brightening was the first word, the anti-tail the second, the swarm the third. What would the fourth be? If the comet was not a natural wanderer but a messenger, then its escalating behavior might not be a breakdown, it might be a broadcast. And if so, what message was being delivered, and to whom? Even the most cautious scientists admitted the timing was uncanny. Humanity was watching with more instruments than ever before as an interstellar visitor revealed behaviors never before recorded. Telescopes, probes, and satellites gave us front-row seats to the escalation of a mystery that defied explanation. Whether natural or not, 3 Atlas was teaching us something profound about the unknown. It was showing us that the universe is not a static place, but a stage where the unexpected can unfold in real time. And so the world watched. Each night, the comet grew stranger. Each morning, the headlines grew sharper. The escalation continued, a drumbeat of anomalies that seemed to quicken with every day. For those who believed in omens, the meaning was clear. The heavens were stirring. For those who believed in science, the challenge was humbling. The cosmos had handed us a riddle, and it was rewriting itself faster than we could solve it. Real-time escalation meant that 3 Atlas was no longer just a comet. It was a phenomenon, a living mystery unfolding step by step, daring us to keep pace. Whether it was breaking apart, awakening, or revealing its true nature, one truth stood above all. We were witnessing history not in the span of millennia, but in the span of days. And in that compressed window of time, as the comet burned brighter, stranger, and more menacing, humanity realized the future of Mars, and perhaps more, might hinge on what the next escalation would bring. Mars in the crosshairs. The drama of 3i Atlas grew heavier with every passing week, but nothing sharpened global attention more than the revelation of its trajectory. For Earth, the object posed no immediate threat. Its path was angled well beyond our orbit. Yet for Mars, the story was entirely different. Simulations showed the interstellar visitor, along with its swelling swarm of fragments, would pass dangerously close to the red planet. Suddenly, Mars was no longer just a passive observer of the cosmic drama. It was in the crosshairs of an event that could alter its skies, its climate, and perhaps even its destiny. From the first orbital calculations, planetary scientists knew the encounter would be close. But as the object brightened, fragmented, and shifted, confidence in those models eroded. Every new burst of outgassing altered its speed. Every swarm formation redistributed its mass. The anti-tail, pointing sunward, meant material was being flung directly into orbital lanes that Mars would soon occupy. What was once a narrow possibility of impact now grew into a looming uncertainty. No one could rule out a collision with fragments, or even with the core itself. Mars has always been a symbol of both fascination and fragility. Its thin atmosphere, barely 1% the density of Earth's, makes it vulnerable to outside forces. Global dust storms triggered by small disturbances can enshroud the entire planet for months, blocking sunlight and altering its conditions dramatically. If even a fraction of 3i Atlas's swarm were to collide with the planet, the results could be catastrophic. Not in the sense of destroying the world, but in the sense of plunging it into decades-long atmospheric upheaval. Scientists began running models of worst-case scenarios. A single large fragment striking the Martian surface could blast dust high into the atmosphere, darkening the skies and dropping temperatures globally. Multiple strikes, even smaller ones, could kickstart planet-wide storms, coating solar panels of robotic explorers, choking the thin atmosphere with haze, and possibly reshaping Mars's climate for years. To a world already teetering between dust and cold, such an event could tip the balance in ways we barely understood. The timing was ominous for another reason. Humanity's exploration of Mars was at a fragile stage. Rovers like Perseverance and Curiosity were still roaming its surface. Orbiters like MAVEN and Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter provided constant streams of data. And future missions, sample returns, even human colonization plans were being prepared with increasing urgency. If Mars were struck by the fragments of 3 Atlas, decades of careful preparation could be derailed. What use is planning for a human colony if the planet itself becomes a storm-racked wasteland for decades? But for others, the potential collision sparked darker fascination. If 3i Atlas carried exotic organic compounds, as many suspected, then an impact with Mars might seed its surface with new material from another star system. Some speculated this could provide the missing ingredients for life to flourish, or reawaken ancient microbial life buried beneath the soil. The idea that panspermia could unfold before our very eyes, that life could leap from interstellar ice into the Martian dust, was both thrilling and terrifying. Would Mars bloom, or would it be poisoned? Would humanity witness the spark of new biology, or the silencing of an alien world? The discussion echoed myths and prophecies across cultures. Ancient stargazers often connected Mars with omens of blood and war. The Romans named it for their god of battle. Babylonian texts warned of a second fire lighting Mars in the sky, a celestial body passing near and igniting turmoil. Some Native American traditions spoke of twin suns, one red and one green, that would burn together before great changes came. To see 3i Atlas, glowing emerald moving toward fiery Mars, was to see these old warnings embodied in the heavens. For modern humanity, though, the concern was more tangible. Engineers asked whether orbiters could be shielded or reoriented to survive dust impacts. Mission planners debated whether upcoming launches should be delayed until the encounter passed. On Earth, astronomers stressed that while Mars was in the crosshairs, we were not. Yet public imagination surged anyway. Images of a green comet striking Mars, sending plumes of dust into space, became viral symbols of cosmic vulnerability. The red planet, once a distant world of curiosity, now looked like the stage for a disaster that everyone could watch unfold. The scientific challenge grew sharper as the comet escalated. Predicting a comet's trajectory under normal conditions is difficult, but possible. With an interstellar body shedding fragments unpredictably, it became nearly impossible. Each outburst changed the numbers. Each fragment had its own microorbit, its own potential path toward Mars. The swarm was less a single bullet and more a shotgun blast, uncertain, scattered, but wide enough to place Mars directly in its spread. Some researchers began to speculate about a more profound possibility: capture. Mars's gravity, though weaker than Earth's, might seize fragments of 3I Atlas and pull them into temporary orbits. If this occurred, Mars could gain new moons, or at least temporary companions. These captured fragments could tumble in erratic paths before eventually colliding with the surface or being ejected back into space. Mars in the crosshairs might not only face impact, it might inherit interstellar debris as permanent scars in its sky. This possibility raised tantalizing questions. If fragments landed intact, could they be studied by future missions as samples of another star system? Could they carry exotic isotopes, molecules, or even precursors to biology? To hold in one's hand a rock from another star is the dream of planetary science. Yet the means of delivery, a violent swarm crashing into Mars, threatened to make such dreams both possible and devastating. The urgency of the situation revealed a strange irony. For years, Mars has been the focus of human hope, the planet we might one day colonize, terraform, or use as a second cradle for civilization. Now, that same planet had become a target in a cosmic drama, caught in the path of an object we barely understood. If Mars was to be humanity's future, then its fate at the hands of 3I Atlas would resonate with us all. Would the planet become more hostile, shrouded in endless dust storms, or would it be transformed by alien chemistry into something more alive? Observers across Earth continued to watch the countdown unfold. With every passing day, 3I Atlas drew nearer to Mars's orbital zone. The swarm thickened, the anti-tail sharpened, the green glow brightened. Telescopes mapped its path obsessively, each update narrowing or widening the possibilities. Yet no one could offer certainty. Mars was in the crosshairs, and all humanity could do was wait for the shot to be fired. In this sense, Mars became a mirror for us. Its vulnerability reflected our own. If another interstellar object ever took aim at Earth, would we fare any better? Could we predict it, deflect it, or survive the aftermath? Watching Mars in the crosshairs was both a scientific event and a rehearsal for our own fragility. The universe had sent us a warning written across the sky, and though the red planet bore the risk, the lesson was meant for us all. As the final weeks of approach ticked down, silence grew in the astronomical community. The usual caution of scientists gave way to something closer to awe. "We don't know what will happen," one planetary scientist admitted in a televised interview. "We only know that Mars is about to face something extraordinary." And so, the tension built. Would 3I Atlas simply pass by, leaving Mars untouched? Would fragments rain down, stirring storms that would choke the skies? Would the red planet inherit alien molecules, rewriting its chemistry forever? In the end, only one truth mattered. Mars was no longer just a world of dust and rock. It was a target caught in the crosshairs of a mystery from beyond the stars. Planetary storm scenario. When astronomers first whispered about the possibility of 3I Atlas striking Mars, or even brushing it with fragments, many tried to downplay the risk. After all, comets pass planets often, and the solar system is vast. But as the swarm grew denser, as the anti-tail aligned with orbital paths, and as the real-time escalation made every week more uncertain, the conversation turned. If even a modest portion of this interstellar debris rained upon the red planet, the results would not be a local disturbance. They could trigger a planetary storm scenario, an event so large it might transform the Martian climate for years. To understand this possibility, one must first look at how Mars responds to disturbance. Unlike Earth, where weather patterns are driven by a thick atmosphere, oceans, and strong magnetic protection, Mars is fragile. Its atmosphere is thin, only about 1% as dense as Earth's, and it has no global magnetic field to shield it from solar winds or cosmic impacts. Yet, despite this fragility, or perhaps because of it, Mars is capable of producing dust storms on a scale Earth has never seen. Even small shifts in temperature and air pressure can lift dust from the surface. Once in motion, these particles can circle the globe, and cloaking the planet in a reddish haze that lingers for months. The last time such a storm engulfed Mars, it silenced NASA's Opportunity rover forever. A machine that had survived for more than a decade succumbed not to mechanical failure, but to the suffocating shroud of dust that blocked sunlight from its panels. If an ordinary Martian storm can bring down our most resilient explorers, what would happen if an interstellar swarm injected fresh chaos into the planet's skies? The planetary storm scenario begins with impact. Imagine fragments of 3I Atlas, ranging from boulders to mountains, slamming into Mars. Even a fragment just a few dozen meters wide could release the energy of a nuclear weapon upon collision. Larger shards could rival the force of ancient impacts that shaped Mars' surface craters. Each strike would loft plumes of dust high into the thin air, filling the atmosphere with particles far finer than Earth's volcanic ash. On Mars, where air is already saturated with suspended dust, this additional load would be catastrophic. But the danger doesn't stop with impacts. Even without direct collisions, the passage of the swarm itself could trigger atmospheric chaos. The dust released by disintegrating fragments might blanket Mars in a veil that blocks sunlight. Without warmth, surface temperatures would plunge, ice deposits could expand, and winds could whip across the planet as pressure gradients shifted. A storm born in the upper atmosphere might spiral downward, feeding on itself, until Mars became a world of storms, its crimson deserts hidden beneath a choking sky. The global scale of such a storm cannot be overstated. Earth's largest hurricanes span a few thousand kilometers at most, but Martian dust storms have been known to stretch across the entire planet. A planetary storm fueled by fresh debris would not fade in weeks. It could persist for months, even years, creating a new climate equilibrium. Sunlight would struggle to reach the ground, temperatures could drop sharply, and the already tenuous balance of Mars's atmosphere could collapse further, thinning or thickening in ways no model can yet predict. The implications for exploration are dire. Rovers like Perseverance depend on clear skies for their solar-powered instruments and for communication relays through orbiters. A storm of this magnitude could bury them in dust, obscure their sensors, or even block radio signals. Orbiters might fare better, but their instruments could be overwhelmed by the sudden haze, limiting their ability to study the surface. For decades, we have treated Mars as a laboratory of exploration, a place to test humanity's reach. In a planetary storm scenario, that laboratory would go dark. Yet the scenario carries another layer of complexity: biology. If fragments of 3I Atlas carry organic molecules, as many suspect, then a dust storm on this scale could act as a delivery system. Instead of a single impact site spreading organics across a small region, the storm could distribute alien chemistry across the entire planet. Every dune, crater, and canyon could be dusted with material forged in another star system. In this sense, a planetary storm would be both destructive and creative, erasing our machines, but perhaps seeding the soil with the building blocks of life. This possibility raises questions that stretch beyond science into philosophy. Would such an event be an accident of physics, or would it look like intention? Ancient myths spoke of gods scattering seeds of life across barren lands, or torches of fire raining down from the heavens before times of renewal. To see Mars enveloped in a storm driven by an alien visitor would feel less like a random event and more like the fulfillment of those prophecies. The planet named for war could, in a twist of cosmic irony, become a cradle of life through the chaos of interstellar dust. But storms are not gentle teachers. If Mars were cloaked for years, the consequences could also sterilize rather than seed. Without sunlight, any existing microbial life beneath the soil might struggle to endure. Ice layers could expand into permafrost, locking away resources needed for colonization. For human explorers, the dream of settling Mars could vanish in a haze of dust and cold. Even if life were seeded, it might take centuries for it to emerge, far beyond the horizon of our plans. The storm scenario also forces us to confront Earth's vulnerability. Watching Mars in the crosshairs is not just about that world, it is a mirror for our own. If 3I Atlas had aimed at Earth, we too would be vulnerable to its swarm. Our thick atmosphere might shield us from smaller fragments, but large impacts could trigger climate shifts, blocking sunlight in ways similar to volcanic winters. Dust storms on Earth may never match Mars in scale, but the lesson is clear: interstellar visitors are not harmless. They carry the power to reshape worlds. In the halls of science, debate rages quietly. Some argue the planetary storm scenario is overstated, that Mars's atmosphere cannot sustain a storm lasting more than a few months. Others warn that with so many unknowns about 3I Atlas, the safe path is to assume the worst. Data from telescopes show the swarm growing daily, its particles spreading like a net across the sky. Whether Mars is brushed lightly or struck heavily, the dust seems unavoidable. The countdown to encounter grows shorter. Each day, the green glow of 3I Atlas burns brighter, a cosmic torch racing toward its rendezvous with the red planet. On Earth, we can only watch and speculate. Will Mars emerge from the encounter unchanged, a silent desert as before? Will it be scarred by impacts, its surface darkened by new craters? Or will it be transformed into a world wrapped in storms, a place where alien dust rides the winds and settles into every valley? The planetary storm scenario is no longer just a thought experiment. It is a looming possibility, written in the glow of the comet and the spread of its fragments. And whether the outcome is destruction, creation, or some uneasy blend of both, one truth is clear: Mars will not be the same. A storm is coming, not the kind born of air and water, but of interstellar fire and dust. And when it breaks across the red planet, it will remind us all that the cosmos does not play by our rules. It brings its own storms, vast and merciless, and sometimes it chooses a world to bear them. Mars, it seems, has been chosen. Atmospheric consequences. If 3I Atlas or its fragments were to collide with Mars, the first and most visible effect would be violent impacts. But the longer-lasting consequences would not be craters or explosions. They would be in the skies above. Mars' atmosphere, thin and tenuous though it is a delicate system that can be pushed into upheaval by the smallest disturbances. A storm of interstellar debris could alter it not just for weeks or months, but for decades, reshaping the climate of the red planet in ways we can scarcely predict. Mars' atmosphere is already fragile. At its surface, air pressure is less than 1% of Earth's. It is mostly carbon dioxide with traces of nitrogen and argon. It lacks the protective layers we take for granted. No ozone to shield from radiation, no thick blanket of gases to buffer temperature swings. Yet even in this tenuous shell, dynamics play out. Winds sweep dust across deserts, local storms swirl into global ones, and thin clouds drift across its pinkish sky. It is a system balanced precariously between calm and chaos. When a fragment of 3I Atlas slams into such an atmosphere, even before it strikes the ground, energy is transferred. Shock waves ripple outward, compressing and heating the thin gases. Dust is lifted, temperatures spike, and pressure gradients shift violently. A large enough impact would loft billions of tons of dust and debris high above the surface, where it could remain suspended for years. Unlike Earth, where rain washes particles from the air, Mars has no such cleansing mechanism. Once dust is in the atmosphere, it lingers. This lingering is what makes the atmospheric consequences so dire. Already, Mars is prone to dust storms that spread across continents and sometimes the entire globe. In 2018, such a storm choked the skies for months, ending the mission of the Opportunity rover. That storm was triggered by nothing more than natural heating and turbulence. Imagine, then, what a cascade of impacts from interstellar fragments could do. Mars would not see one storm, it would see dozens, spreading and merging until the entire planet was swallowed in a shroud of dust. Such storms would alter the planet's albedo, the amount of sunlight reflected back into space. With more dust in the air, less sunlight would reach the surface. Temperatures could drop dramatically, plunging Mars into a long, cold season. Ice at the poles might expand, trapping carbon dioxide and thinning the atmosphere further. Or, paradoxically, trapped heat in the lower atmosphere could raise temperatures locally, creating wild swings between hot and cold. Mars' climate, already erratic, would become hostile in new and unpredictable ways. But dust is only one layer of the problem. The chemistry of 3I Atlas adds another. Spectral readings suggest it carries exotic compounds, including organic molecules unlike those found in solar system comets. If these compounds are injected into Mars' skies, they could react with existing gases. Nitrogen traces might bind with alien molecules to form new compounds. Carbon dioxide could mix with interstellar organics in ways never before seen. The Martian atmosphere could become a laboratory of alien chemistry, its composition altered in subtle but profound ways. This could have dual outcomes. On one hand, it might poison the planet further, making its air even less hospitable to future human colonists. Toxic compounds could linger, corroding materials or creating hazardous surface deposits. On the other hand, the new chemistry could enrich Mars, seeding it with precursors to life. Complex molecules could settle into the soil, waiting for the right conditions to evolve. The atmosphere would become not just a veil of dust, but a crucible for creation. Electromagnetic effects must also be considered. Mars lacks a strong global magnetic field, which on Earth deflects solar winds. This means charged particles from 3 Atlas interacting with the thin air could trigger auroras visible across the entire planet. But without protection, these same interactions could strip gases from the atmosphere, thinning it even more. In this sense, Mars could be eroded from above and below at once, dust storms choking it, while solar winds peel away what little air remains. For robotic explorers, the consequences would be immediate. Dust in the atmosphere scatters radio waves, potentially silencing communication between rovers and orbiters. Solar panels would be blanketed, starved of power. Cameras would see nothing but haze. Instruments designed to measure weather or geology would be overwhelmed by noise. Mars could go dark to human eyes, its machines stranded in a world transformed. Yet for scientists, the atmospheric consequences are not just dangers, they are opportunities. If fragments of 3I Atlas alter Mars's air, we could witness panspermia in action, life's ingredients spreading across worlds. Future missions might sample gases and find not just familiar molecules, but alien isotopes, fingerprints of another star system. Studying such air could reveal what chemistry is universal in the galaxy and what is unique to Earth. Mars's skies might become a record of interstellar history written in particles and light. The cultural resonance of this scenario cannot be ignored. In myth and prophecy, skies turning dark have always symbolized upheaval. The Mayans spoke of serpents shedding sparks across the heavens before the air grew thick. Medieval chroniclers described green torches in the sky before famine and plague. Even modern apocalyptic visions are filled with images of red skies and choking dust. To see Mars, the god of war, wrapped in a veil of alien haze would feel like prophecy fulfilled, a planet punished, or perhaps chosen. There is also the unsettling thought of permanence. Unlike Earth, where weather clears and cycles reset, Mars lacks the resilience of oceans and forests. A planetary storm seeded by interstellar dust might not fade quickly. It could persist for years, even centuries, altering the trajectory of the planet's climate permanently. Mars might emerge colder, darker, and less hospitable than before. Or it might emerge richer in chemistry, its skies infused with alien potential. Either way, it would not return to the Mars we once knew. For humanity, the lesson is sobering. Mars has always been our next step, the world we look to for colonization, exploration, and survival. If its atmosphere can be rewritten in a single encounter with an interstellar body, then our plans rest on fragile ground. We cannot control the cosmos, and the very skies we hope to breathe one day may be reshaped before we arrive. Watching Mars suffer atmospheric consequences is a reminder of our vulnerability too. Earth's skies could be changed in the same way should another object take aim at us. And so the countdown continues. 3 Atlas burns brighter, its swarm spreads wider, and Mars waits in the path. If the fragments strike, the consequences will not just be craters in the dust. They will be written in the air, in the storms that rise, in the chemistry that lingers. Mars's atmosphere, already a fragile veil, could become a storm-racked shroud of alien dust and molecules. The Red Planet has always been a mirror for our imagination. God of war, cradle of life, frontier of exploration. Now it may become something else, a warning. The skies of Mars could soon tell us what happens when interstellar visitors rewrite the air of a world. And once that lesson is written, it may echo far beyond the Red Planet, reminding us that no atmosphere, not even Earth's, is safe from the touch of the stars. The Great Dust Veil. If 3 Atlas were to scatter its fragments into Mars, the most haunting and lasting image would not be of fiery impacts or craters carved into its surface. It would be of the skies, dimmed, thickened, and cloaked in a pall so vast it might smother the planet in twilight. This vision, the Great Dust Veil, is more than a scenario of atmospheric disturbance. It is the idea of Mars being wrapped in a shroud, its face hidden, its climate altered, and its very identity transformed beneath a storm of alien dust. To imagine the veil, one must first understand Mars' relationship with dust. Unlike Earth, where water and vegetation anchor soil, Mars is a world of loose particles. Its deserts are endless, its regolith ground fined by billions of years of impacts and erosion. Winds, though faint in the thin atmosphere, are capable of lifting this dust into the air. Once airborne, particles linger. There is no rain to wash them down, no dense atmosphere to settle them quickly. This is why dust storms on Mars can grow from local whirlwinds to planet-encircling tempests. The Great Dust Veil would take this natural vulnerability and amplify it to unimaginable scales. Fragments of 3I Atlas, even small ones, could inject vast amounts of new material into the Martian sky. Every impact would hurl fine particles high into the atmosphere. But more than that, the fragments themselves, rich in exotic dust and ice, would disintegrate into clouds of alien material. This would not be dust born of Mars, but dust from another star system mingling with the planet's fragile atmosphere. It would be the first time Mars's skies were veiled by matter not of the solar system. The veil would not be uniform. At first, it would appear as scattered hazes, plumes rising from fresh impacts, ribbons of dust drifting across the horizon. But as days passed, winds would spread it. Local plumes would merge into regional storms, then into global coverage. Soon, the entire planet could be wrapped in a dim veil, the sun reduced to a pale disk struggling to pierce the haze. From orbit, Mars would no longer appear red, but a muted grayish-brown, its features obscured under a blanket of dust. The consequences of such a veil are profound. Sunlight already weak on Mars would be further diminished. Surface temperatures could plunge, disrupting the tenuous balance of polar ice and equatorial deserts. Frost might spread into regions normally free of it. Carbon dioxide ice, sublimating in seasonal cycles at the poles, could expand unchecked, thickening the atmosphere temporarily before collapsing back as temperatures swung. Mars' climate, already fragile, would be cast into chaos. For robotic explorers, the veil would be catastrophic. Solar panels would fail first, starved of light. Communications could falter as dust interfered with radio signals. Cameras would see little beyond the haze, their images reduced to gray silhouettes of a dying sky. Instruments designed to study surface geology would be blinded. Missions still in operation could fall silent one by one, their signals lost in the storm. Humanity's outposts on Mars, though unmanned, would vanish into a curtain of alien dust. But the veil is not only destructive, it is transformative. Dust in an atmosphere acts as more than an obstacle to light. It can also act as a medium for chemistry. If 3I Atlas carries organics, as its unusual spectrum suggests, then those molecules would not simply fall to the surface. They would circulate in the atmosphere, reacting with carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and trace gases. Alien chemistry would take place in the skies of Mars, creating compounds unknown to our solar system. Some might settle into the soil, enriching it with precursors to life. Others might linger, making Mars's skies a laboratory of interstellar reactions. This transformation would not go unnoticed by those who study ancient prophecies. The image of a veiled world resonates across myth. In Babylonian texts, the heavens darkened before the fall of empires. In Mayan legends, a serpent in the sky shed scales that clouded the air. Medieval chronicles spoke of veils in the firmament, cloaks of dust that signaled famine and plague. To see Mars hidden beneath a literal veil of alien dust would seem less like coincidence, and more like the fulfillment of an ancient story. The god of war shrouded, the red planet silenced beneath a cosmic shroud. It is the kind of omen that civilizations once feared, now written in the language of science. The veil could last far longer than human patience. On Earth, volcanic eruptions like Tambora in 1815 or Pinatubo in 1991 dimmed the skies for months, lowering temperatures worldwide. But those effects faded with rain and time. Mars has no rain. Its atmosphere is so thin that settling is agonizingly slow. Dust injected into the upper layers could persist for years, even decades, before gravity finally pulls it down. The Great Dust Veil would not be a passing storm, it would be an era. In that era, Mars might change permanently. The surface, deprived of sunlight, could grow colder than ever before. Ice might creep into lower latitudes, burying valleys in frost. Rovers, buried in dust, might be preserved like relics, frozen in time. Even the geology of Mars could be altered as alien dust mingled with local sediments, creating layers that future explorers would puzzle over, evidence of a time when another star's fragments fell upon the red world. The veil also raises questions about perception. From Earth, telescopes might see little more than a dim haze surrounding the planet. Observatories would note the drop in albedo, the loss of contrast, the fading of surface features. Mars, once a familiar disk of deserts and canyons, would become a ghostly blur. For humanity, this would be more than science, it would be a psychological blow. Our neighbor, the world we plan to visit, would be hidden from us, cloaked in mystery. The dream of Mars would become a memory until the veil cleared. And yet, even in this darkness, opportunities emerge. If orbiters survive the storm, they could study the chemistry of the veil in detail, sampling particles that carry the fingerprints of another star system. For the first time, humanity could analyze alien dust directly, not as a meteorite that fell to Earth, but as an atmosphere-wide infusion. The veil, for all its menace, would be a gift to science, a chance to glimpse the building blocks of life as they exist beyond our solar system. But to most, the Great Dust Veil would feel less like a gift and more like a warning. It would demonstrate how fragile worlds are, how easily their skies can be rewritten by chance encounters. It would show that even Mars, long silent and dead, is not immune to cosmic upheaval. And it would remind us that Earth, too, could one day wear such a veil, whether from a comet's dust, an asteroid's debris, or even our own hand. The image is stark. Mars, dimmed and hidden, the god of war wrapped in a funeral shroud of alien dust. The veil would not simply cover the planet, it would redefine it for years, perhaps centuries. And in that shrouded world, beneath skies that no longer let the sun shine freely, humanity would see a reflection of its own fragility. The Great Dust Veil is more than a scenario of Martian weather. It is a vision of transformation, of prophecy, and of warning. It asks whether a planet can be reborn in darkness, whether alien dust can turn death into creation, and whether we are prepared to face the same fate one day. Mars, veiled in silence, would not answer. But its dim glow in the sky would whisper across the void. This is what happens when the cosmos chooses to cloak a world. Seeds of life or doom? As 3i Atlas continues its unpredictable approach toward Mars, one question rises above all others. What exactly does this interstellar visitor carry within its glowing, green-tinged body? Its fragments, its dust, and its gases may not be ordinary cometary debris at all. They could contain organic molecules, complex carbon structures, and even precursors to life itself. Chemistry forged in a star system far beyond our own. But this raises a chilling paradox. If such materials rain down upon Mars, will they become seeds of life, sparking a new biological chapter on the red planet? Or will they deliver doom, smothering Mars under alien toxins or destructive storms? The possibility of life-bearing fragments rests on an old but profound idea: panspermia. For decades, scientists have speculated that comets and asteroids could be carriers of life's raw ingredients. On Earth, many researchers believe water, amino acids, and other essential compounds were delivered by comets billions of years ago. Meteorites from Mars found in Antarctica have even contained organic molecules, suggesting that planets can exchange the seeds of life across space. Now, with 3i Atlas, the stakes are far greater. This is not just a comet from our solar system. It is an exile from another star, carrying chemistry shaped in alien suns and nebulae. If fragments of 3i Atlas strike Mars, they could deposit exotic molecules across its surface. These may be simple amino acids, hydrocarbons, or sugars, the basic building blocks of biology. If conditions are right, they might serve as catalysts for life. Mars already shows hints of potential habitability: underground water reservoirs, occasional methane emissions, and chemical energy sources in its soil. If alien organics are added to this fragile mix, Mars could experience a chemical awakening. The seeds of life could take root, hidden deep in its rocks or beneath its ice, awaiting time and stability to flourish. But the same scenario carries equal potential for catastrophe. What if the chemistry of 3i Atlas is not life-giving but life-destroying? Not all organic molecules are benign. Some can be toxic, corrosive, or destabilizing to planetary environments. Exotic compounds might react violently with Mars' carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere, producing acids or gases that render the air even less hospitable. Dust seeded with alien chemistry could poison the soil, making it harder for microbes or future human colonists to survive. Instead of sowing life, 3i Atlas could deliver a chemical curse, a veil of doom settling across the planet. There is also the deeper question of compatibility. Life on Earth is based on carbon, water, and DNA. But what if 3I Atlas carries organics built on different principles? What if its molecules are mirror images of our own, with opposite chirality, incapable of fitting into Earth-style biology? They might be useless as nutrients, or worse, they could interfere with any existing life flight. Mars may still harbor, clogging chemical pathways, overwhelming fragile microbial ecosystems, and snuffing them out. What we would see as seeds of life might, to native Martian organisms, become a fatal toxin. Scientists debate this duality with urgency. On one hand, the idea of studying interstellar organics on Mars is exhilarating. Imagine rovers sampling alien molecules delivered fresh from another star, providing insights into whether life's chemistry is universal or diverse. On the other hand, such contamination could forever compromise Mars as a natural laboratory. If life emerges after the comet's fragments fall, will it be Martian in origin, or will it be alien life imposed from beyond? The line between discovery and distortion could blur forever. Myths and prophecies echo this tension. In some cultures, stones from the sky were seen as sacred gifts, seeds cast by gods to awaken barren lands. In others, they were curses, fiery omens of destruction, bringing famine and death. The Mayans spoke of star serpents shedding fragments that either renewed the earth or poisoned it. Ancient Middle Eastern traditions warned of a visitor star that would hover near Mars, bringing both creation and ruin. To see 3I Atlas shedding a swarm of glowing fragments onto the red planet is to see these prophecies alive again, seeds from the sky, uncertain in their promise. The psychological weight of this paradox is immense. For years, Mars has been humanity's great hope, the world we dream of colonizing, the world we imagine transforming into a second Earth. If 3I Atlas delivers seeds of life, Mars might become richer, more fertile, perhaps even alive. But if it delivers doom, Mars could become even more hostile, cloaked in toxins and storms that erase decades of planning. The future of Mars, whether as a home, a laboratory, or a graveyard, may hinge on the chemistry of an alien comet. Consider the scenario of enrichment. Dust clouds settle, storms pass, and in the silence that follows, the surface of Mars is changed. Alien molecules cling to rocks, seep into soil, and dissolve in underground brines. Over centuries, slow reactions build complexity. Amino acids form chains, sugars bind. Strange polymers emerge, different from DNA but no less capable of storing information. In hidden niches beneath the ice of craters or deep in caverns, alien chemistry takes hold. Mars becomes not a dead world, but a seedbed for a new form of life not born of Earth, but of the stars. Now consider the opposite scenario. The fragments fall, releasing compounds that mix with Mars' air. Instead of creating, they corrode. Acids form in the atmosphere, drifting downward to burn the soil. Toxic gases choke the thin air, erasing any fragile microbes that might have survived beneath the surface. Dust laced with alien chemistry clogs chemical pathways, rendering the soil sterile. Instead of a cradle, Mars becomes a tomb, its faint chance at habitability buried forever under alien doom. In both cases, the transformation would be permanent. Unlike Earth, Mars lacks cycles to cleanse itself. No oceans to dilute toxins, no thick atmosphere to buffer impacts, no biosphere to absorb shocks. Whatever 3 Atlas delivers, it will linger. Mars may not recover. Its fate could be written in the chemistry of fragments we cannot yet fully understand. For humanity, the paradox is haunting. Do we root for life, even if it is alien, knowing it may erase Mars as we know it? Or do we root for silence, hoping Mars remains barren, preserving its role as a clean slate for exploration? Either way, the decision is not ours. The universe writes its own script, and Mars may already be cast as the stage for this cosmic experiment. The seeds of life or doom may also serve as a warning. If interstellar bodies can carry alien chemistry, then Earth too is vulnerable. What happened or is about to happen on Mars could one day happen here. A fragment from beyond could seed our world with molecules that spark new life, or deliver poisons that disrupt the balance we depend on. Watching Mars, we are watching a rehearsal of our own future. And so, as 3 Atlas draws nearer, humanity waits. Telescopes strain to read its chemistry. Rovers scan the Martian soil for signs of change. Prophets and scientists alike ask the same question. Will the visitor bring life, or will it bring death? Perhaps the answer is both. Perhaps life and doom are two sides of the same seed. For what is life if not the transformation of a barren world into something new? And what is doom if not the destruction of what once was to make way for what comes next? In this sense, 3 Atlas may not be choosing, it may simply be delivering, and Mars must bear the consequences. The image of alien dust falling upon the red deserts is both beautiful and terrifying. Seeds of life or seeds of doom, either way, the veil will settle, the chemistry will mingle, and Mars will never be the same again. The swarm's intent. When telescopes first noticed the dark fragments drifting around 3I Atlas, most scientists assumed it was nothing more than a comet breaking apart under stress. Heat from the sun, pressure from outgassing, gravitational tugs, all of these could fracture an interstellar body into pieces. But as the swarm multiplied and spread, the pattern of its behavior began to trouble even the most cautious observers. These fragments did not scatter randomly into the void. They hovered, clustered, and seemed to move in rhythms that hinted at something more than chance. The question emerged in whispers, then in headlines. Did the swarm have an intent? Natural cometary fragmentation is chaotic. Pieces break away at odd angles, spinning into space, following their own paths. They disperse, fade, and vanish into dust. Yet the fragments of 3 Atlas defied this expectation. Some orbited close to the nucleus, as if bound by invisible forces. Others trailed neatly behind, not dispersing into a cloud but maintaining cohesion, like soldiers in formation. Observers described it as a dark entourage, a retinue shadowing the glowing green core. This persistence suggested coordination, or at least a principle of organization we did not yet understand. One explanation was gravitational resonance. Perhaps the fragments were caught in subtle patterns of attraction, their motions shaped by the nucleus and each other. Another possibility was electromagnetic influence. Charged particles interacting with solar wind could form filaments, sculpting dust and debris into apparent order. But neither explanation fully captured the swarm's persistence. The fragments seemed too disciplined, too cohesive. They looked less like rubble and more like agents. This uncanny order gave rise to a bolder hypothesis. What if the swarm was not a symptom of decay, but a strategy? What if 3 Atlas was not dying, but transforming, shifting from a single body into a distributed network? In nature, many organisms adopt swarming behavior to survive. Bees divide their hives, fungi scatter spores, fish and birds move as one to confuse predators. Could 3I Atlas be doing the same on a cosmic scale, dispersing into many so that it could endure beyond the destruction of one? If so, the implications were staggering. It would mean the swarm was not merely debris, but design. A deliberate dispersal of seeds, probes, or particles meant to spread across the solar system. Mars, in this interpretation, was not simply in the crosshairs by accident. It was the chosen landing ground, the recipient of the swarm's intent. The interstellar visitor was not just passing through, it was delivering. To those who dared entertain this possibility, the parallels with prophecy were chilling. Ancient stargazers wrote of heavenly armies appearing in the skies, countless sparks trailing behind torches of fire. The Mayan vision of the sky serpent described a glowing body shedding fragments that fell upon the earth, bringing both renewal and upheaval. Siberian shamans spoke of a stone from the stars that shattered into many, each piece carrying change. Medieval chronicles told of fiery rains following green torches in the heavens. These were not the words of astronomers, but of people who saw swarms in the sky and wondered at their intent. Now, in the age of science, we were staring at the same mystery. But what could such intent be? Some speculated the swarm was a form of seeding, spreading life or chemistry into barren worlds. Each fragment could be a capsule of organics, delivering the ingredients for biology to Mars's soil and air. Others saw it as a probe, a distributed intelligence scattering its sensors, testing the planets it encountered. Still others warned of darker interpretations, that the swarm was a weapon, a cloud of destruction aimed at reshaping worlds not through life, but through ruin. From a purely physical perspective, the intent of the swarm might lie in redundancy. By fragmenting, 3I Atlas increased its chances of interacting with Mars. A single nucleus could miss, but a swarm spreads across a wider path, ensuring some portion will strike. In this sense, the swarm's intent was mathematical, to maximize impact, to multiply possibility. Whether by life, by ruin, or by sheer chance, the swarm was ensuring its presence would be felt. The uncanny patterns of the swarm deepened speculation. Some astronomers noted that the fragments pulsed in density, thickening and thinning in cycles. Others claimed to see arcs and spirals, shapes that suggested choreography. These could be illusions of perspective, tricks of distance and geometry. Yet, to those watching closely, it was difficult to dismiss the sense of rhythm. The swarm seemed alive, not in the biological sense, but in the sense of behavior, responsive, coordinated, purposeful. For Mars, this intent spelled danger. If the swarm was dispersing deliberately, then its fragments were not accidents, they were vectors. They would not simply drift past, but arrive in numbers, striking, seeding, or both. The planet could be cloaked in dust, bombarded by impacts, and infused with alien molecules. Whether this was a gift or a curse remained unknowable, but the effect would be undeniable. Mars was not facing one comet, but an entire strategy of fragments. The cultural impact of this idea was immense. To think of a comet as alive, as intentional, challenged the boundaries of science and myth alike. Was 3I Atlas a messenger, as ancient cultures believed of sky torches? Was it a machine, as some modern theorists suggested, dispersing probes across the cosmos? Or was it simply a natural body whose strange physics mimicked intent? Each possibility carried weight, and none could be proven. The swarm's intent also forced reflection on Earth's future. If Mars was the target today, could Earth be the target tomorrow? If interstellar objects can fragment into purposeful swarms, then no planet is safe. The same curtain of dust and debris could one day veil our skies, bringing either enrichment or ruin. Watching Mars become the testing ground was not comfort, it was a rehearsal for our own fragility. Scientists struggled with the tension. To call the swarm intentional was to step into speculation, yet to deny its patterns felt dishonest. The truth may lie between natural physics giving rise to apparent order, chance appearing as design, but even that ambiguity was unsettling. If we cannot tell the difference between chaos and intent in the stars, how can we ever be sure what we are truly seeing? And so the question lingers, suspended in the dim green glow of the interstellar torch. What is the swarm's intent? Is it to spread life, scattering seeds into barren worlds? Is it to bring doom, cloaking planets in dust and cold? Is it to endure, ensuring that fragments survive even if the nucleus dies? Or is it all of these at once, the duality of creation and destruction written in dust and light? For Mars, the answer will come not in speculation, but in impact. When the swarm arrives, when its fragments fall, or its dust spreads across the skies, the planet will know the truth. And through our telescopes, so will we. Until then, the swarm remains a riddle, a dark entourage circling a green torch, its movements whispering of purpose, its presence daring us to ask if the universe itself carries intention. The swarm's intent, whatever it may be, is no longer an abstract mystery. It is bearing down on a world we have studied for generations, a world we hope one day to call home. In the silence of space, fragments gather, hover, and move with an order we cannot deny. And in that silence, one truth emerges. The cosmos does not always speak in words. Sometimes it speaks in swarms, echoes of Oumuamua. Long before 3 Atlas burned its eerie green light into the sky and shed its swarm of fragments, another visitor had unsettled the world, Oumuamua. Detected in 2017 as the first known interstellar object to enter our solar system, it arrived as a faint, elongated speck and left as a legend. Its passage was brief, yet the questions it raised have never truly faded. And now, with 3I Atlas rewriting the rules of cometary behavior in real time, those old questions return with renewed force. The echoes of Oumuamua reverberate across every observation, reminding us that this is not the first time the universe has whispered secrets we were unprepared to hear. Oumuamua defied easy classification from the moment it was discovered. It was not shaped like a typical comet or asteroid. Instead, it appeared stretched, with estimates suggesting a cigar or pancake-like form. It tumbled erratically as it crossed the solar system, flashing sunlight in rhythms that suggested flatness or extreme elongation. And most unsettling of all, it accelerated in ways gravity alone could not explain. Without the usual signs of cometary activity, no tail, no visible outgassing, Oumuamua still sped up as if pushed by an invisible hand. At the time, scientists strained for natural explanations. Perhaps it was a shard of a shattered planet or a fragment of frozen hydrogen or nitrogen ice sublimating invisibly. Some argued that tiny jets of gas could still drive its motion, too faint to see from Earth. But others entertained a more daring idea, that Oumuamua was not natural at all. Could it have been a probe, a solar sail designed to drift between stars? Could its acceleration have been the whisper of alien engineering, disguised in the form of rock and ice? The debate never reached a satisfying conclusion. Oumuamua moved too quickly, and our telescopes were too slow to catch it in detail. By the time questions sharpened, it was already leaving the solar system, bound for the void. We were left with speculation, models, and a haunting sense of missed opportunity. For years, scientists and the public alike carried those echoes, wondering if we had glimpsed more than we realized. Now, with 3i Atlas, those echoes feel louder than ever. Both are interstellar, both defy expectations. Both arrived not with quiet predictability, but with mystery, rewriting the rules of what a visitor from beyond should look like. And both have raised the same underlying question. Are we truly witnessing random fragments of cosmic geology, or are we seeing the fingerprints of intelligence at work? The parallels are striking. Oumuamua's anomaly was its silent acceleration. 3i Atlas's anomaly is its unnatural brightening and its anti-tail pointing sunward. Oumuamua offered no visible trail of gas or dust, yet behaved as though it were being pushed. 3i Atlas offers too much, glowing violently, swelling in ways its size should not allow, as though releasing energy far beyond natural limits. Both objects refuse to fit neatly into categories. They resist labels, confound models, and demand that we expand our imagination. There are deeper echoes still. Some researchers suggested that Oumuamua could have been a fragment of a larger structure, perhaps a shard of an alien megastructure or a piece of interstellar debris released by advanced technology. With 3i Atlas, the swarm around it reignites this speculation. If one interstellar visitor can appear as a solitary shard, could another appear as a collective, a hive dispersing itself across the sky? Could Oumuamua and 3i Atlas be two faces of the same phenomena, one solitary, one swarming, both carrying messages we cannot yet decipher? The echoes are not only scientific, but cultural. The arrival of Oumuamua sparked a wave of speculation in public imagination. Books, documentaries, and debates flourished around the idea of first contact, hidden in the form of a mysterious rock. It became a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that the stars may not be empty. Now, with 3i Atlas, those cultural echoes return with greater urgency. This time, the visitor is not silent, but theatrical, brighter, stranger, more dramatic. The questions that followed Oumuamua now resurface with teeth. What if we are not just witnessing accidents of nature, but encountering artifacts of intent? The differences, too, sharpen the echoes. Oumuamua passed quickly, offering little time for observation. 3i Atlas lingers, changing daily, escalating in real time. With Oumuamua, the frustration was that we did not look closely enough. With 3i Atlas, the frustration is that even as we watch closely, it keeps rewriting itself, refusing to stay still. One slipped through our grasp, the other dazzles us with its complexity. Together, they form a pair of riddles that suggest interstellar visitors may be far stranger and more frequent than we dared believe. Some scientists wonder if both objects are part of a broader pattern. Could interstellar space be filled with such bodies, slipping silently between stars, their true nature masked by the limitations of our instruments? If so, then 3i Atlas and Oumuamua are not anomalies at all, but heralds. They are the first visible notes of a cosmic chorus we are only beginning to hear. The echoes are not of one object, but of many, scattered across the void, waiting to pass close enough for us to notice. And then there is the possibility of intent. If Oumuamua was a scout, could 3 Atlas be something more? A carrier, dispersing its swarm into planetary orbits? A messenger burning with alien chemistry to ensure we notice? A reminder that we are not alone, delivered not in radio signals or spacecraft, but in the language of celestial spectacle? The echoes of Oumuamua whisper that we have already glimpsed such mysteries once before. To ignore them now, as 3i Atlas grows stranger by the day, would be to repeat the same mistake of inattention. Prophecy, too, finds resonance here. Ancient traditions often describe pairs of omens, one subtle, one obvious, one shadow, one flame. Oumuamua, silent and faint, could be seen as the subtle omen, the whisper. 3 Atlas, bright and violent, is the flame, the shout. Together they fulfill the pattern of dual signs in the sky, the quiet precursor followed by the dramatic harbinger. To cultures that read the heavens as texts, this pairing would be unmistakable. The first was the warning, the second is the event. For humanity, the echoes of Oumuamua serve as a mirror. In 2017, we debated, dismissed, and eventually let the mystery slip away. In 2025, with 3I Atlas, we are confronted again, this time with no escape. The comet is brighter, nearer, and its effects may touch Mars in ways no one can deny. The echo demands an answer. Will we again look away, or will we admit that the universe may be stranger, more deliberate than we imagined? The scientific world struggles with caution. To leap to alien explanations risks ridicule. To cling to natural models risks blindness. Oumuamua showed us the cost of hesitation. 3I Atlas now shows us the cost of disbelief. Between the two lies a space of humility, where we must admit that our understanding of interstellar visitors is incomplete. The echoes remind us, when the universe speaks, it does not always do so in the language of our textbooks. In the end, Oumuamua and 3 Atlas may be connected only by chance. 2 wanderers from different stars, each strange in its own way. Or they may be chapters of the same story. A narrative written across light years, delivered to us in fragments. Either way, the echoes are undeniable. The first taught us to question. The second demands we listen. As 3I Atlas barrels toward its rendezvous with Mars, its green torch burning brighter, its swarm spreading wider, we cannot help but hear Oumuamua's whisper in the background. It is as if the universe is repeating itself, louder this time, unwilling to let us ignore the message. The echoes of Oumuamua are not fading. They are amplifying, resonating through the new enigma that now dominates our skies. And perhaps, when history looks back, it will not see 2 isolated mysteries, but the beginning of a conversation between the stars and us, a conversation that began with a whisper in 2017, a conversation that now roars in emerald fire across the path of Mars, and a conversation that asks us, with quiet insistence, to finally answer, are you listening? Ancient parallels. When modern astronomers peer through telescopes and watch 3I Atlas shed its green light, form its impossible anti-tail, and scatter into a dark swarm, they describe it in the language of physics: outgassing, sublimation, orbital perturbations, electromagnetic fields. But thousands of years before equations and observatories, ancient peoples saw the same kinds of sights and recorded them in a language of myth, prophecy, and symbol. For them, comets and celestial torches were not cold fragments of ice and rock. They were messengers, omens, God's weapons, or heralds of upheaval. In the behavior of 3I Atlas, uncanny echoes of those ancient records appear again, as if the past had already glimpsed the present. One of the clearest parallels lies in the writings of the Babylonians. Skilled astronomers who charted the heavens with precision, they recorded wandering stars that cut across the constellations, growing brighter or dimmer without warning. To them, such stars were never neutral. A torch in the sky was a sign from the gods, often tied to changes in kingship, war, or natural disaster. Clay tablets describe comets that burned against the wind or shed sparks upon the earth. The antitail of 3I Atlas, pointing defiantly toward the sun, echoes these descriptions eerily. A celestial torch that seemed to resist the heavens themselves. Mayan traditions offer another striking parallel. In their codices and oral histories, they spoke of the vision of the sky serpent, a glowing serpent in the heavens that shed fragments as it passed, each scale a burning shard that fell toward the world below. This was not only a tale of destruction, but of renewal, for the fragments were also seen as seeds of change, heralding the birth of new cycles. When astronomers today describe 3I Atlas breaking into dozens of fragments that swarm around its glowing body, they are unknowingly sketching the same image painted by Mayan scribes centuries ago, a serpent unraveling, scattering pieces into the void. Medieval Europe, too, left its chronicles of celestial torches. Monks in cloisters wrote by candlelight of green fires in the firmament that preceded famine, plague, or rebellion. To them, the color was no accident. Green was the hue of sickness, the pallor of death, a symbol of rot and transformation. When 3 Atlas glowed green in modern telescopes, its light caused unease for reasons that science could explain. fluorescence from diatomic carbon, but that culture had long ago anticipated. To see a green comet was to see a sign of upheaval. And indeed, 3I Atlas is not just another comet. It is a comet that defies physics, frightens astronomers, and seems poised to bring storms to Mars. Far to the north, Siberian shamans spoke of elongated stones that fell from the stars. These sky bones, as they called them, were not round but stretched like spears hurled by unseen hands. Some said they were alive, carrying spirits of fire within them. Others claimed they shattered upon entering the sky, scattering pieces that rained across the land. The elongated form of Oumuamua and the stretched nucleus of 3I Atlas both recall these legends. And when fragments cluster like a swarm, they resemble the spirit children that Siberian shamans described as following behind the parent stone. The parallels suggest that humanity has long seen not only comets but swarms, long before modern cameras confirmed such phenomena. In the Middle East, early Islamic scholars and poets wrote of visitor stars that approached Mars, hovered near it, and then vanished. To them, such stars were warnings of upheaval in kingdoms, symbols that war or great change would follow. The prophecy of a star that pauses near Mars resonates with today's scenario. For 3 Atlas is not only near Mars, it is threatening to rain dust and fragments upon it. To ancient eyes, such a fulfillment would not be coincidence. It would be destiny. Even the Greeks, whose philosophers often sought natural explanations, filled their texts with awe of celestial fires. Aristotle wrote of exhalations that burned in the sky, while later chroniclers described hairy stars with tails like flowing hair. But in some texts, the tails are not uniform. They are reversed, twisted, or doubled. One fragment speaks of a comet with a beard toward the sun. That description could easily apply to the anti-tail of 3I Atlas, pointing sunward, in defiance of expectation. Did the Greeks once witness the same phenomenon we now see? Did they record another comet that bore the same impossible features? Prophecy after prophecy speaks of doubling, of twins, of reflections. The prophecy of the twin suns, preserved in different forms across the world, describes a time when Mars will burn twice, once with its own red fire and once with the light of a visitor. Today, with 3I Atlas glowing green as it approaches Mars, the vision feels eerily literal. Mars may indeed shine with two fires, the red of its soil and the green reflection of interstellar dust. The parallels between prophecy and astronomy blur, as if ancient visionaries had glimpsed this very moment in the sky. Some dismiss these parallels as coincidence. Human imagination, after all, is prone to patterns. Comets appear strange, and so myths arise. Yet there is another possibility, that ancient observers recorded real phenomena similar to what we now witness. History is long, and interstellar visitors may not be as rare as we think. Perhaps another comet long ago brightened unnaturally, shed fragments, or even struck a planet. If so, the records left behind are not prophecy but memory, fragments of history written in myth. What makes the parallels so haunting is that they converge. Cultures separated by oceans, by language, by centuries told the same stories. Torches that brightened too quickly, serpents that shed fragments, stars that hovered near Mars, green fires that foretold upheaval. These are not isolated tales, but echoes of a shared experience, humanity looking to the heavens and seeing the same mystery we now face. For modern scientists, the parallels serve as both caution and inspiration. They remind us that comets have always been more than astronomy. They have been mirrors of fear, symbols of change, and heralds of transformation. Whether through science or myth, humans have always sensed that visitors from the stars carry weight. They do not pass quietly. They shake our imaginations, and sometimes, perhaps, they shake worlds themselves. As 3 Atlas moves closer to Mars, these ancient parallels grow sharper. If its fragments do strike, cloaking the planet in storms, then myth will seem less like imagination and more like foresight. If alien organics fall across the Martian soil, seeding life or poisoning it, then prophecies of seeds from the stars will feel like records, not metaphors. The past may have seen what we are about to see again. And so, as humanity waits, staring upward with telescopes and satellites, we are not only watching a comet, we are standing in the same place as our ancestors, gazing at a sky alive with omens, uncertain whether what falls will be blessing or curse. The names have changed, the language has changed, but the awe is the same, the fear is the same, the hope is the same. Three-Eye Atlas is a scientific enigma, yes, but it is also an echo, a repetition of a drama humanity has always known. The arrival of a stranger in the heavens, carrying the power to change everything. The ancient parallels remind us of a profound truth. The universe does not surprise us with anything new. It only returns in cycles the mysteries it has always held. And each time we find ourselves asking the same question. Is this the light of creation or the shadow of doom? Countdown to encounter. The story of Three-Eye Atlas has been told in fragments of light, in sudden brightening, in impossible tales, and in swarms of drifting bodies that shadow its path. But now all of those mysteries converge on a single reality. Time is running out. Mars stands in its trajectory, and the world watches as the interstellar wanderer draws closer. Astronomers have shifted their language from curiosity to urgency. Engineers and planetary scientists count days, not years. Journalists frame headlines around a clock. For humanity, the drama of Three-Eye Atlas has become something visceral, a countdown to encounter, with no way to stop the clock. The countdown began quietly in the fine print of orbital calculations. At first, the numbers placed Three-Eye Atlas far from any danger, just another visitor to admire as it swept through the solar system. But as it brightened unnaturally, as the swarm of fragments multiplied, and as the anti-tail flung debris into paths that intersected Mars's orbit, the math shifted. Simulations once showing clear passes began to show probabilities, and those probabilities grew heavier with each update. Now, every recalculation is part of the countdown, each adjustment narrowing or expanding the uncertainty, but never erasing it. Telescopes across the world have joined the watch. Amateur astronomers, professionals in observatories, even orbiters around Mars, all are locked onto the same object. Every night yields new data, and every morning brings fresh tension. Some days the models suggest Mars will only graze the swarm. Other days the data shows a collision with fragments all but inevitable. This seesaw of certainty fuels the anxiety. The countdown is not smooth. It is jagged, oscillating between relief and dread like a pendulum swinging faster as the clock ticks down. In the media, the countdown has taken on a life of its own. Channels broadcast animations of green comets striking Mars, of dust storms engulfing the planet, of skies darkened for decades. Headlines cry, "Will Mars survive?" Documentaries compare Three-Eye Atlas to ancient prophecies, stirring images of omens fulfilled. For the public, this has become more than science. It is spectacle. Mars, long the subject of dreams and myths, is now cast as a stage where the universe's drama will play out before our eyes. The countdown has become a global ritual, uniting people in anticipation of an event they cannot control. In scientific halls, the atmosphere is quieter, but no less intense. Teams run supercomputer simulations, modeling millions of possible fragment trajectories. Engineers study how Martian rovers might endure a dust storm seeded by interstellar debris. Planetary scientists debate whether organics from Three-Eye Atlas could spark or snuff out life on Mars. Each conversation circles back to the same reality. There is no way to intervene. Unlike Earth, where planetary defense initiatives explore deflection strategies, Mars has no shield. It will meet the comet's swarm unprotected. The countdown for scientists is not about prevention, but observation. They prepare not to save Mars, but to witness what happens when a world faces an interstellar storm. This helplessness sharpens the edge of the countdown. Humanity has spent decades dreaming of Mars as our next home. It is the planet we imagine colonizing, terraforming, making into a second Earth. Yet here we are, powerless, watching as a comet from beyond the stars threatens to erase those dreams in a haze of dust. The countdown is not only for Mars, it is for us. For the future we hope to find there, for the vision of Mars as a refuge. Each day that passes without clarity is another reminder that our plans rest on fragile ground. But the countdown also awakens wonder. What if fragments from Three-Eye Atlas do strike Mars? Not with destructive fury, but with transformative chemistry. What if alien molecules settle across its soil, seeding life in hidden caverns or briny reservoirs? What if the storm that darkens Mars also fertilizes it, turning a barren desert into a cradle of alien biology? In this possibility, the countdown is not to disaster, but to creation. The red planet could emerge not ruined, but reborn. The myths of old play into this duality. The Babylonians spoke of torches in the heavens that burned before kings were replaced. The Mayans described serpents shedding scales that fell as seeds of change. Medieval chroniclers wrote of green fires that foreshadowed famine, yet also renewal. Today, with 3I Atlas approaching Mars, these prophecies echo again. The countdown is not just a scientific clock, it is a mythic one, measuring the approach of a cosmic omen. Will Mars burn with destruction or awaken with life? The ancients would say the heavens alone decide. As the encounter nears, the pace of events accelerates. Each day brings fresh surprises, new bursts of brightness, new fragments revealed, new trajectories shifting. It feels less like watching a comet and more like watching a performance, a spectacle unfolding act by act. The countdown is not to a single moment of impact, but to the climax of a story that has already enthralled us with mysteries. The arrival, the brightening, the ante-tale, the swarm, all were preludes. Now comes the final act. The psychological toll of the countdown cannot be ignored. For scientists, it is the stress of unanswered questions. For the public, it is the unease of waiting for something vast and unknowable. For philosophers, it is the reminder that humanity is not in control. We like to imagine ourselves masters of destiny, but the universe has sent us a visitor that laughs at our hubris. The countdown is not only about Mars, it is about humility, about the recognition that cosmic forces still shape the fates of worlds. There is also the haunting possibility of silence. Perhaps 3I Atlas will pass without striking Mars. Perhaps its fragments will disperse harmlessly into the void. If that happens, the countdown will end, not with a bang, but with a whisper. And yet, even that whisper would carry weight. We would have watched for months, measured every detail, debated every possibility, only to see the universe remind us that not every countdown ends in catastrophe. Sometimes it ends in relief, leaving behind not ruins, but knowledge. Still, few expect such a quiet ending. The swarm is too dense, the trajectory too close, the chemistry too strange. The consensus is that Mars will feel something, whether dust, fragments, or storms. The countdown, then, is not to yes or no, but to how much. How violent will the encounter be? How long will the consequences linger? How deep will the transformation cut? These are the questions that tick louder with every passing day. For future historians, the countdown to 3 Atlas's encounter with Mars may be remembered as a turning point. If Mars emerges veiled in dust, it will be a warning of planetary fragility. If it emerges seeded with alien chemistry, it will be a revelation about life's universality. Either way, humanity will not look at interstellar visitors the same way again. The echoes of Oumuamua showed us the whisper. 3I Atlas shows us the roar. Together, they signal the beginning of an age where the universe's visitors are no longer rare curiosities, but agents of change. And so the clock ticks. Days shorten, probabilities sharpen, the glow brightens. Mars waits, silent and exposed, a world in the crosshairs of a mystery from beyond. Humanity waits too, tethered to telescopes, eyes fixed on the green torch that grows larger in the sky. The countdown to encounter is not just about a comet striking a planet. It is about the moment when the universe reminds us that it is still alive, still full of surprises, still writing stories across the heavens. When the clock reaches 0, Mars will know the truth, and through its silence, so will we. A messenger or a warning. The mysteries of 3I Atlas have unfolded like chapters in a book we were never meant to read. The unnatural brightening, the impossible anti-tale, the swarm that seemed less like rubble and more like an entourage, the looming danger to Mars. Each escalation has left scientists scrambling for explanations, while the public whispers of omens, prophecies, and things beyond our understanding. But as the countdown to encounter draws near, one question eclipses all others. Is 3 Atlas simply a messenger from the stars, or is it a warning? To call it a messenger is to assume purpose, to believe that its very strangeness is intentional. The way it brightens so violently, glowing emerald as though to catch our eye. The way its tail defied physics, pointing sunward like a cosmic dagger. The way its fragments did not scatter chaotically, but formed a swarm, pulsing with cohesion, as if directed by invisible will. These are not the actions of a silent wanderer, some argue. These are signals designed to ensure we notice, to provoke questions, to force us to pay attention. But what is the message? Some imagine it to be simple presence, a reminder that we are not alone. For centuries, humanity has looked outward, wondering if other civilizations exist. What if the answer was not hidden in radio waves or distant signals, but delivered physically, an object crossing the Gulf of Stars, burning brighter and stranger than anything else in the sky? In this reading, 3i Atlas is a cosmic letter, written not in words, but in spectacle, telling us, we are here. We have always been here. Others believe the message is more profound. The strange chemistry detected in its glow, organics, carbon chains, ratios that don't match anything in our solar system, might itself be the content. Perhaps 3i Atlas is less a messenger than a delivery system, scattering seeds of life across worlds. Its fragments, if they strike Mars, could enrich its soil, fertilize its hidden brines, and awaken microbial activity that has lain dormant for eons. If so, then the message is not just presence, but potential. Life can be everywhere, even here. Yet to frame it as a messenger is to see benevolence, and not all who study the comet share that optimism. For there is another reading, darker and more unsettling, that 3i Atlas is not here to deliver hope, but to issue a warning. Warnings, after all, are often spectacular. In ancient myths, gods sent torches across the heavens to herald destruction. Babylonian priests wrote of green fires in the sky before plagues and wars. The Mayans described star serpents shedding scales before cycles of upheaval. Medieval monks chronicled comets as scourges of the skies, signs that death and famine would follow. Today, with Mars in the crosshairs of an interstellar swarm, those ancient warnings feel less metaphorical and more literal. Perhaps 3i Atlas is not delivering life, but caution. The universe can erase as easily as it creates. If it is a warning, what is its subject? Some say it is Mars itself. The red planet, long dead, may soon be shrouded in dust, its atmosphere rewritten by alien chemistry, its surface scarred by fragments. If humanity ever planned to make Mars our second home, this event may serve as a cosmic reminder of how fragile that dream is. The warning, in this view, is directed not at the planet, but at us. Do not assume the stars will give you refuge. The universe is not tame. Others believe the warning is more universal. If interstellar objects can arrive unannounced, carrying chemistry we cannot predict and behavior we cannot explain, then no planet, not even Earth, is safe. The countdown to encounter is, in a sense, a rehearsal. Mars is the test subject. Earth could be next. In this reading, 3i Atlas is not just a warning, it is a threat veiled as spectacle. We can reach you whenever we choose. Of course, many scientists resist both extremes. They argue that calling 3i Atlas a messenger or a warning anthropomorphizes a natural object. To them, it is simply a comet, albeit an unusual one shaped by physics we don't yet fully understand. Its brightening may be fragile ice, its anti-tail may be geometry, its swarm may be natural fragmentation. To call it intentional is to project human fears onto indifferent stone. Yet even among these cautious voices, unease lingers. The coincidences pile up, the anomalies multiply, and the comet refuses to behave as expected. At some point, the line between strange natural and possible intentional blurs. Whether messenger or warning, the timing feels uncanny. Mars has become the focus of our exploration, the next frontier we hope to conquer. Just as our machines crawl its surface and our plans grow more ambitious, an interstellar object appears, threatening to cloak it in storms or seed it with alien dust. The symbolism is stark. Just as we reach for Mars, the universe places an obstacle or a gift in our path. Is this encouragement or deterrence, an invitation or a blockade? Prophecy finds fertile ground in such questions. The prophecy of the twin suns, found in both Mesoamerican and Middle Eastern traditions, speaks of Mars burning twice, once with its own fire, once with a visitor. The Keeper of Life, a legend from Siberian shamans, speaks of a starstone that would awaken barren worlds. The green flame omen, found in medieval writings, warns of upheaval following a green torch in the sky. Each of these could be seen as describing 3 Atlas, centuries before its arrival. The ancients framed it as both messenger and warning, life-giver and destroyer. Perhaps they understood something we are only now rediscovering, that the two are never separate. Creation and destruction are two sides of the same cosmic coin. For humanity, the stakes are not only scientific, but existential. If 3i Atlas is a messenger, then we are not alone, and the universe is alive with intent. If it is a warning, then we are fragile, and the universe is alive with danger. Either way, the myth of a silent cosmos is broken. The skies are speaking, and we are listening, whether we want to or not. The paradox is that a messenger and a warning can look identical. A brightening torch, a swarm of fragments, a looming storm over Mars, these could be gifts of life or omens of doom. They could be engineered or natural, benevolent or hostile. We cannot yet tell the difference. Perhaps that is the true lesson of 3 Atlas, that meaning itself is elusive, that the cosmos speaks in riddles, and that we must live with ambiguity until the storm passes. As the countdown draws near its end, telescopes record every flicker, orbiters ready to measure dust, and rovers brace for silence. The encounter will reveal something, whether chemistry, catastrophe, or creation. But even before that revelation, the question remains alive. Messenger or warning? The universe has given us no clear answer. It has only given us a green torch in the heavens, brighter and stranger by the day. And perhaps that ambiguity is the point. For what is a messenger without mystery? What is a warning without uncertainty? The duality forces us to look outward with humility, to accept that not every answer comes neatly wrapped. The visitor from the stars does not hand us clarity. It hands us a question written in dust and light, left for us to ponder as Mars awaits its fate. When the fragments fall or miss, the message will still remain. We have seen a torch from another star. We have watched it behave with strangeness and defiance. We have felt in our bones the unease of prophecy reborn. Whether it is a messenger or a warning, 3i Atlas has already succeeded in its intent. It has reminded us that the universe is alive, unpredictable, and beyond our control. And perhaps that is both message and warning at once.